Okay, I should be live. So I'm going to do a little bit more live here, and this one should be public. I've just realized that I still need to learn how to do lives. I'm used to do these edited kind of things, and I have all my workflow, and on the live, I kind of get confused a little bit. So I'm going to put this live public, such as, people can show up and I can actually understand how it works. And then I will archive it for the live stream members only. So this way the live stream will get this value back. And then I will also do some scheduling of videos, and those will be only for the live stream members. But my plan right now is to do this when I want to do something. And today I'm going to code my Rust web app, and I'm going to change SHA-512 for the hashing of the token to Blake 3. So that is going to be my goal. And so I'm going to do that. And my goal is to do this kind of live coding. And I'm going to put that for the live stream members. And for now, it's going to be public, so anybody can jump in and I can learn the tools here. Okay, so I'm going to share my Rust web app. So that is a Rust web app. And that is, if you go there, Rust 10x, this is what we have over there. So if you go to Rust 10x, it's also on the Rust web app. You go there, and that is a Rust 10x Rust web app. So that is what we have as a repository for production Rust web application. So that is what I'm using for that. So now that we have this, we are going to go back to the code. We don't need the web browser anymore. And the way it's organized here is by libs. So that is kind of the architecture here, where we have our auth, our core, the RPC core, and then the utils and the web. And the goal here is to have my services, and right now there's only one, which is my web server. So that is the things. And today I'm using Argon 2 for the password encoding. So if I go below my libauth, I have two things here. I have the PW and the token. So that is basically the crate, the libraries that I'm using in my web server, in my RPCs to do the authentication. And so that is using PW, the Argon 2. We're going to keep it this way, and the token is using today SHA-512 for the hashing, and we're going to use Blake 3. So if we go back to a little bit, let's show the architecture. This one is going to be a good one. So I have this, I'm using Sketch app, and this is, sorry, two things. So that is basically the architecture that we have, more or less. It might change a little bit, but no, I think this is more or less that. Yeah. There's a little bit, one more libweb, but this is what we have. So we have this architecture, and then we have the auth, which is used by web server, where we're going to change. And today here, the way it works is, I don't know if you have seen the video of 3 hours here, but it's a long one. Sorry, this one. Okay. And that is the one here, which is the authentication. Okay? So we are sending the username on API login, and that will do the login, and then it will create a token, and the token will have this format, which is similar to JWT, but it's not JWT, because JWT might be good across systems when you don't own the system, but once you are back to your system, we don't need JWT. And in fact, there's argument to say that JWT is has some inconvenience, yeah, from a security standpoint. But it does work, but it's not, there's a lot of noise in JWT. But one of the good things of JWT is this kind of things where it's a base 64 URL, with a dot separator. So that is pretty neat because it makes this token very portable. You can put it in cookie, you can even put it as parameters in the URL and everything. So you can even use this pattern to sign URL if you want. So right now we're using that for the signature. And the signature here of this guy, when we have a token salt, so we have a salt or a key, which is global, plus a user salt. So that makes the password and the token super secure. Yeah, probably more than most banks or whatever. So the thing is, we are hashing these two guys. Yeah, so that is the identifier, which could be the UUID or could be anything else. Yeah, so I think in our case it's a user ID, but could be UUID of the user. It doesn't really matter. And then you do dot, and then you have the expiration date, which is the only thing that matters. And then you have the signature. And that right now, we're using SHA-512. So my goal is to use Blake 3, because Blake 3 is awesome. And I'm going to explain a little bit why. But it's very fast and it's as secure as SHA-512, and then we can use it also for other stuff. So it's a cool stuff to do. And also I'm going to show it how we're going to do it without it's not going to be intrusive in the way we're going to do it. So that is the benefit of this approach here. I'm like moving my chat here to make sure if people are chatting. So feel free to ask questions. Okay. So I'm still learning the live stream here. A thing that I've learned yesterday when I did the video is that I shouldn't ask questions and wait for the answer because it makes the whole thing very frustrating to watch because there's a delay. So then I wait for like 20 seconds. It's just silly. But question is always more than welcome. So feel free to ask anything. So that is what we're going to do. So now where does this guy here is in the code? So if I go back to the code, yeah, so we have this architecture here where we have the lib core, the librpc core, which is a core thing that does the RPC, libutils, libweb. So this is that. And inside that, there's a source and there's a password and there's a token. The password is using Argon2. So if we go, on this guy over there, we're going to see an Argon2. Yeah. Oh, we have the scheme. Yeah, so we have a multi-scheme. I will explain why that later. It's part of the video of 3 hours, but one thing I'm going to do in 2025 is first I'm going to spend quite a bit of time in the Rust web app to update it, make it more, I'm going to make it multi-tenant or multi-org, yeah, and I'm going to add quite a bit of things because actually I have clients now that are following this pattern, so I'm working with them, so I want to share that with everybody. Yeah. And so we can see here that on the scheme 2, we have this Argon 2. Yeah, so that is a multi-scheme kind of thing. In the token stuff, we do not have a multi-scheme. We don't really need. Eventually, we can implement it, but we don't have it. And the multi-scheme, I'm going back and forth, sorry, but there's a lot of information. But the multi-scheme is this kind of things here where in clear, so that is fully hashed in the password, obviously. But the goal of the multi-scheme is that, okay. But the goal of the multi-scheme is that it allows us to have a version 1 and a version 2 of the scheme. So version 1 was with, I think, bcrypt, or I don't know if it was bcrypt, it was SHA-512 or whatever. And then version 2 is with Argon. And so that allows us in the database to make sure that we're still allowing people to log in with the version 1. And then as soon as they log in, we automatically update to version 2. So we have this progressive kind of way to upgrade the user without bugging them. And obviously we can shut down, the scheme 1, and then they will have to do the stuff. Any advice on mastering Rust? Learn well, don't learn fast. Yeah, that is the thing. Take your time to learn it. And if something doesn't click one day, keep it for later. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, for me, sometimes I get confused. There's one thing which was very embarrassing for me. It's just me. It's little details. It's like 4 weeks ago, whatever. I had in my GenAI things, I was using an option of vect. because I thought that I read somewhere in some code, and I remember the comment and to say, you know, 1 word or 2 words is better than 3, because I thought that a vec was larger than an option. So I was like, oh, if I really need a vector, then I'm going to wrap it into an option because it's going to be more performant. And that is a myth. I was completely wrong. So I missed it. Yeah, I mean, it's sometime I should have read it somewhere, but I missed it, and it's no big deal. Yeah, and so the point is, don't get too upset if you don't get things. Understand what the language is. And my advice is at the beginning, when you do your functions, try to take reference. When it doesn't work because you have multi-threaded or async, then put stuff in arc. Yeah, to not get too crazy about having your struct with reference. In all my code, and I'm starting to have a lot of code, I have very few struct or enum or whatever with references. Yeah, so usually you get around pretty well, and the arc, it's a very, very efficient way of wrapping things. Yeah, so when it's inside arc, it's becoming immutable, but that is good for most of the case. Yeah. And yes, I think, well, so I have a video on how to learn Rust, which is pretty good. You can go to my YouTube, or you can go to Rust 10x. Yeah, I have it there sometimes. It's faster to type. I have, sorry, I'm getting slow here. 5 steps to learn. So I have 5 steps to learn. You can find it on YouTube as well. Yeah, so you have these 5 steps to learn, and those are, I should have a top video, the one that I recommend. And this one I recommend quite a bit is the way that I learn. And we're going to see that in the live stream. I have this whole things with the XP and all this kind of thing, XP programming and stuff. So we'll look into some of these practices, but that is quite a bit there. And then the other, if there's only few videos you watch, is this one, is the 5 ways to learn and the 9 best practices. Yeah, so there's a version 1, version 2, and version 3 over there, and then the error best practices. So those will be the 4 videos out of my 96, if you don't have time, kind of to watch. I will recommend better things. And now I've lost the chat. No, the chat is here. Okay. And yeah, and so in this video, the 5 steps to learn, I'm saying that for me, even me, I didn't read the whole book till the end. So I read up to 6, and then I read kind of as needed. There's a great book, which I haven't read completely, and, you know, is from Maria, I think. Maria Boss, or I'm sorry if I misspelled the name. It's a great book about concurrency and stuff. And it's one of these Bible books where every time I say, you know, I need to spend more time reading it because it's really explained it. But those are very advanced stuff. The thing to understand with Rust is you don't have to master the whole beast to be very productive. Yeah, you have to embrace it in a way and not fight it. So don't try to mimic inheritance, you know, with trait and object trait and all of that. But once you embrace it and you embrace the trait model and everything, yeah, so all of those are good, and you embrace the type system, is actually getting very productive after a while. Okay. Yeah, okay, yeah, thank you a lot, yeah. The error best practice. And it took me a while, yes, because I have a video which I don't know if I shouldn't say, well, I'm going to say it. I say everything I think anyway. I have this video here, which I love the thumbnail. It's a very cool thumbnail and stuff. And it does very well. And it's a good practice, yeah, but it's not the modern one. So I need to do one of this video for 2025 because there's stuff here that I changed. A prelude is the exception now, it's not the rule. So there's a few changes here that I need to do a 2025 version of the quick start. But until now, the 4 videos that I mentioned is a little bit, you have everything that I would have put in this new quick start. Okay, so now let's go and, okay, now we're back to business. So what we want is to be able to do our Blake 64. And so I'm going to code it with you here as I will code it for myself because I didn't pre-code it. So sometimes, obviously, in my videos, I pre-code things such as it's very smooth and very efficient. In this live, I'm deciding to go a little bit more kind of live and share more. Yeah, that is, I think, is the point of the live. And so what I'm going to do is go back to my code, sorry. And it's weird, when I go back to the code, I lose I have this chat box here that I'm losing sometimes. It's weird. And let me do this. I'm sorry, I'm still learning my little workflow with live and stuff. Where to put the chat and everything. There's so many options between OBS and putting the browser and stuff. But now I think it's good. Okay, so now this is where we have the password. This is where we have the token. In this crate, I decided to have an error per submodule for all these guys, an error for that. Usually, I have an error probably for libcore. No, actually, no. libcore, I decided to have an error here for model and an error for context. And they don't even cascade back up because the libcore is a util that I'm going to use somewhere else. So I don't need to have a libcore like all errors because I will use either context or model. So that is a thing. I haven't articulated here this rule yet, but at the high level is usually I try to not have too many errors down the stack or the tree because otherwise it's a pain to go back up. But at the same time, I don't need to go back up all the time to the crate or to the lib because then it doesn't add value. So there's a judgment call here to say which level, and it's always a judgment. Yeah, nothing is perfect. So in the token here, we have our error here, which is basically if something goes wrong here. So here I see that we have the hash mag guy. So we're going to have to probably add errors related to Blake, I guess. And then I have the mode here. Yeah. So I like my code region business. So I do, I close M1, I have the modules, I have the token type, and then okay. And then wait a second here. I'm going to try, I need to say something. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry about that. There were big noise coming here, so I managed it. So anyway, so now yeah, I'm still here and everything. Okay, good. So now what I have is the modules. That is where I import all the modules and so on. And then I have my token types. So sometimes I organize my code like this. So let's see like that. I have my token and then the from string from the parser and everything. And so the token that I have is the indent, which is the identifier. So username or anything. I have it string here because what I want is to have the maximum flexibility. Again here, the goal here is to have this guy here. This is this guy in clear. Yes, obviously. This is why it's in clear. And base 64 is clear text. It's not encoded, it's not encrypted or hash or even obfuscated. Yeah, base 64 is always clear text. It's just that it's a portable one in a way. Yeah? And then expiration. So that is the expiration in our RFC 3399. I might change that one of the days and to put it in Unix time UTC millisecond, because the number is large enough and it's easier to have a number. But right now is RFC stuff, which is perfectly fine. So again, those are very implementation details. It doesn't really matter. And then after we have the signature in base64. So in signature is always in B64U. So that is my base64 URL, because there's no value whatsoever to have it in clear. Yeah, you want to have base64, and then the algorithm that does the signature gives a base64U, and then you just compare those. Yeah, it's a black box. So now that we have this, if we go to our code here, we have our token here where we generate the web token, and then we validate the web token. And the validate web token here is going to use, I'm sure inside this guy, it's a long time I didn't try that, but I'm sure that if I go there, I'm going to have this guy, yes, this token into sign, which is probably the same one that I have somewhere, this one. Yeah. In this file, back in those days, what I did is I did this underscore for private. I'm not happy with this stuff. Yeah, so I had it there. It looks weird in Rust because usually when it's underscore is something that is not used. They are obviously used. So I'm going to leave it for now. It's just that, yeah, they are just private, and I don't think I need to have this distinction. So I'm going to make the commit just for Black 3, sorry. And then probably I would change the name here because that was stuff. What I do often in my code, and so like everybody, you know, have their own techniques, but I have some best practices. And then sometimes I have best practices that I experiment with, because you don't want to be hard-coded in the 90s. I mean, I've been coding for a while. So the trick is that we want to have a way of saying, well, you know, here I'm going to experiment this pattern. Here I'm just going to narrow it down to this little kind of sub-modules or whatever. And then eventually, if it gets better, then I can broaden and adopt it later. So that is where I do this mini experiment, and that was one of them, and that I need to clean up because I'm not happy with it. I hope that makes sense. Yes, this code is public. Is actually, I'm going to try to say, I'm going to try to show off here and say Rust web app. Not that good. Nope. So now we do a Rust 10x web app. Okay, now. Okay, Rust 10x. Okay, that's good enough. So Rust 10x web apps, you go to this repo here. That is there. So that is a commit. And I started to redo some cleanup there, and that will be a commit that we're going to put there. So hopefully. Thanks. The goal of this architecture is much bigger. Yeah, it's eventually, this is a web app, which is going to be in that. So my company is Bryceno, which is spelled, I don't want to do a plug here, but yeah, I'm going to do a plug. For days where we don't have to have shame anymore. And so we are Bryceno here, and then we do big app and stuff. So we did a big app in the model stuff. That is just like a video to explain some stuff. But we had some big clients, and we had a full stack and everything. And so we have been doing that for a while now. We do big app architecture services. And so what I've done is we have a blueprint. And back in the days, we had Java on the backend or Node.js, TypeScript on the backend, and then TypeScript and CSS on the front end. And we have these whole things which allows us to do big application with small teams, basically. And so the architecture here fits here. So you have one of these web server, that stuff. And the goal is to have per system, not across all system, but per system. So that is a system. And per system, you have a mono repo. So this is why we have libhost or lib whatever and things such as we can reuse the libraries in different services. Okay? So that is the architecture that we have in our code. This is why it's split like that. We have only one, but we have the libs here and we have the web server here. So that is a web server 1 in a web server A. And then eventually we might have an IT server or something for the DevOps that does the stuff. And hopefully that has been a little bit. So now, now I'm not implementing as fast as I will do it normally, but it's fine. But continue to ask questions. I really like it. This is why I actually starting to like the live business quite a bit. And so now the thing I'm saying is token sign into things. So that is what we want to change. And so if I click here, I should see some SHA-512. Okay. So we see some SHA-512 and that works. So typically the way that I'm going to change that is for the unit test or integration test. I don't want to get too deep into that, but I'm not trying to have 100% code coverage because that is a management numbers. What we want is to avoid management numbers or metrics. We can educate management. I mean, often me in the company, I'm advising, I'm part of the management team, but there's an education of management. It's not because a higher number is not always a better number. Okay? So it's better to have 20% of test coverage of testing what can break over times and what matters than 80% of 1 + 1 = 2. Okay? So the thing I'm saying is to say there's a balance here of that. And usually for me, I feel always guilty that I should add more tests. But the goal is I always make sure that I do the right test. Yeah. And yeah, okay, this is a good question here, but I'm going to come back to you here. So what is the difference between your web servers and your services architectural model? The service basically internally available web servers and more like libraries. I'm going to answer that. I want. So before I'm going to change that, I could have written this function here and it works, and because it works and I tested with the other test, the things, I would have been happy, and perhaps I didn't have a test for that. But now that I'm going to change that, what I really want is to test this guy here, or test a function above. I don't need to be too granular and saying I need to test every function at once. Yeah? If you test the one above, I'm fine. So I'm going to see here in my code if I have some tests. Luckily, I have some. And this is where Rust is amazing, because you can have tests like that are private and everything, and it becomes super nice. And then we have the test token display. So let's see if I do that. Test token from str, so that I don't know if we really care, but then we're going to do this guy here, the test validate. Okay, so we have two tests, one that tests the okay, and then one that tests the error. So that is our the two tests that I have. Yeah, so, and that's my pattern. Yeah, usually I'm trying to have this name more or less kind of unique, at least per crate, and then I have the noun, the big endian kind of things. Yeah. So I have cargo watch, or I have bacon. Okay. I did a video on bacon, which is bacon is awesome for run. For cargo watch, there's a catch that I realized a little bit after the video, which was that cargo with bacon, I mean, there's a catch for watching test. Sorry about that. And the reason is because even when you say no capture, because you want to see the print, then bacon is doing very smart stuff for people that are not doing no capture. But me, I like to do the no capture, such as I don't have to, I can print ln. This is my way. And so sometimes now I still use cargo watch. So I have this kind of things here where you do cargo watch test. And if you have seen my video, I have a things here. So that is going to do a cargo watch dash quiet, I think, dash clear, dash X test, something like that. And then depending of what I give, it will do the no capture and stuff. So I do a cargo watch test, that is an alias. And then I'm going to do test validate, and I'm going to hope it works, because otherwise we're in deep trouble. That is going to compile everything. Okay, so now it tests everything, which is not super cool. So what I want is I might want to do a manual one. So this is it's live coding here. So I'm showing you really much what I do. So my cargo watch test is not designed yet to test per lib. So now I need to know what do I need to do a cargo for a given lib. And I think might have it there. Ah, okay, cool. Hey, not too bad. Okay, so this is the thing. So that is the one exposed. So my cargo watch things is a shell, a zip shell, and then it doesn't have the cargo watch. So I'm going to do this guy, and then I want the no capture, and then that is a lib auth. It's not this guy, and then after. Is this guy. So there's one thing that I spend quite a bit of time when I develop. I develop in a way that iteration is always king. Yeah. So even if I spend like a few minutes and stuff to make sure that I can iterate very fast on that, I spend a few minutes, the 15 minutes, 30 minutes or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Because my point is that I want to make sure that I can iterate very fast on that, and usually I capture that and I put in my notes on the README such as I can reuse it later. So that is my goal. So I'm going to press stuff, and then what I want, hopefully, is that. Yeah. So that is exactly what I want. It does the stuff, and then if I press save, it should replay it, which is exactly what I want. So now I'm happy I have this, and then the next step that I will do here. So I'm there, and I'm using my Rust 10x extension. So if you go to Rust 10x, and I think I have something here, link, but it's on VS Code, yeah? So you put Rust 10x. So it's this extension here, the Rust 10x extension, and there's a set of snippets that I'm using. And one of it is 1p for debug print. Okay, so this is what I like to do. I put that, I make sure that that is there, and I want to see that. And the reason why I do the print like that is because then after I can do a search here, and then I make sure that I remove that before any commit. That's my way. I'm like a print developer. Some people have very strong opinion, one way or the other. I don't have. I'm just, I like to develop with print. So now I do this one here to go back that. And now what we want is that we have that. I'm going to go back to the token. So I'm going to do a search for token signature. And that is the one, I think, when we use a SHA-12. And I'm going to do something like that. Results. So I have this, and so this way. So I have two tests for one reason. I probably have a for loop, it doesn't matter. And that is basically the base64 URL of whatever the bytes change. Okay. I'm going to answer the question here, what is the difference between your web server and your services? I'm going to answer very quickly. And again, there's going to be a lot of lives and videos on that. But a web server for me in this architecture, okay, that is a cloud architecture. A web server take input services, RPC services. And yes, REST for me is RPC. I'm a big fan of JSON RPC, which is just post, HTTP post with JSON. and a normalized way of doing the post for everything. You can use REST, doesn't really matter. You can use gRPC, the same thing. So you have the front-facing kind of services that take calls from others, and then you have the backend services here on the backend. The difference between the two is those guys take RPC calls or REST, and then those guys, they typically, you don't want them to take RPC calls. The way that they all communicate between each other is via the bus. So send an event to the bus, this guy reads the stuff, reads his job, does his job, put back events, and then he kind of get back. He can update the database as well, can update S3, so everybody has their own little responsibility. And they know how to update these kind of things. Guess what? Because they do have the core. Yeah, so in these services, this is why we have this architecture here. I need to move it there. But those services, which will be, for example, video scaler, if you want to scale a video and stuff, they will know how to talk to the database because they will have the core and stuff. So rather to have a whole ping pong and spider web of services that talk to each other and JSON RPC and having meetings about all this event, about all this message and stuff, you have an event-based, and then every services say, you know, when there's a new video, my job is to make a 480p video. And then I send an event to say, hey, 480p video already there. And if someone takes it to do something else, it's their problem. It's not the problem of a workflow map somewhere or whatever. Yeah. So every service can feed themselves. So that is a little bit the architecture that we found by experience that scales very well. And that removes a lot of problems that we don't have to have after. So now we go back. I'm not sure if what I'm going to do, but and I want to use the Blake kind of thing. So the first thing here, we're going to do to the crates.io, and we're going to do Blake 3. So this is a guy we want. Yeah, and it's a very cool library here and everything. So this is all the beauty here that everybody likes. Usually, you know, it's good for performance and stuff, but it's also a good library. The beautiful thing about Blake 3, and I've used it as well, is that now when you are trying to, you can, you can use it as a MD5. So now people are using SHA-512 or whatever they're using it. Yeah? But if you have a big file and you want to pipe it through Blake 3 to have a unique hash for it, Blake 3 is amazing for that, super fast. And so that is kind of a big game changer, at least for me, because even in AI and everything, you want to see, even if block of text is the same or whatever, or they have changed, and Blake 3 can be amazing for that. So this is why I'm a big fan of it. So first thing here, we do this usually I like to do that and go to my cargo. So the Blake 3 here will not be something, at least for now, that will be shared across everything. It's just a lib host kind of thing. So I'm going to put it there. So here, not now, but sometimes I have some stuff that are workspace, you know, when they make sense. Otherwise, I put it there. So I don't put everything in the workspace. I just put the thing. So we're going to put the Blake 3 over there. And then we're going to see how it works. And it works like that. So we have the hasher. We do the update. And I think that is... So that we're going to use this guy because, again, we have the hash. Yeah, we have the global hash and the token hash. Yeah, so that is what we're going to use that. And then I think that is pretty good. So I'm going to use that. And often in libraries, you know, if they don't have, I mean, this one is very well done. No, I think this is good. So I'm going to go back on my mode. And then so that is a way sometimes I do it. So we're not changing that. Yeah. So the decision here is we take the one dot, the second one, and then we hash it. And so we're not going to change that. Here we have created, just a hash mark. So that will be the equivalent of this guy, I think. And then we are adding the content and the salt. Yeah. So actually right now we just have the salt. We don't have a global salt on this guy. We don't have a global salt. No. So sometime what I have as well for token and stuff, I have a global salt. Yeah, so there's a global salt in the EKS stuff plus a per user salt. A per user salt is plenty enough for moreover for a token. Yeah. So now I do not want the full bar base business. I'm going to just do this. And I think that I'm going to press save, compile, great. And then I'm going to take this guy here. So I'm not changing the structure of the code. Sometimes if it's badly done, I do it. Okay, so there's something here that is not into bytes. So that is a hash. I think I remember that. As byte. So far, so good. And then that's it. I think everything works very, very well. So we change the stuff. I have a command U, by the way, to toggle the inlays. Because I like inlays, but I don't like them most of the time. I just like when I ask. It's a little bit like the autocomplete with Copilot. I do have Copilot, but I'm telling him when to start. He's not telling me. He's not the boss of me yet. So we have that, and I think that's it. And so we have the token. Looks good to me. And obviously it's hard to say, yeah, but it does look base64 URL and this and stuff. And the test didn't fail. So now the only thing I need to do is clean up some Clippy. So I have Clippy by default. Sometime, interesting. So now the reason here why I'm confused is why I didn't have this warning before. So I might have forgetting something. So one thing I like to do, I bought a very cool thing, which is fork. And I know that VS Code has the source code here. This one might be hard to see. There's only a problem here. This one is you cannot. But I like this guy here where I can go and see what I had before. I think there's a better way with VS Code to do that. So I'm sorry, guys. I will learn it later. So the thing I don't understand here, I'm going to show you here and stuff. So first of all, I love Clippy. So this is one of our other reasons here why Clippy is amazing, because it gives us these little warnings here. And many times these warnings, sometimes it's just code cleanup, and I like to have clean code as much as I can. But also, I like it because in this case, for example, is why we didn't use a key. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's not that we were in the business of using keys. So there's something here where I'm not sure why before he didn't complain. Yeah, I don't remember that before he complained. So I'm going to check this function here, and unfortunately, no, before we didn't use a key. I'm sorry, it's a little bit small. I'm not sure why before I didn't complain about the key business. So this is where we're going to add the key. Yeah. And the key doesn't have, I think there might be a way to seed it and everything, but the key is almost like a salt. Yeah, it doesn't, here we're not hashing a password, so it's completely fine to do like this, where you update multiple content, and then the goal here is to add content such as it's getting hard for people to do the stuff. And now if we go back there, everything should compile nicely. Okay. Now we have some imports here that are not needed. That makes sense. We don't need those guys. And then if I go back to my token validation, I don't need that. Current breakthrough hasher. Ah, it's from key here. And do they have a from key guy? Oh, okay. Oh, look at that. Okay, so perhaps before here, this is what I missed before. My little fork here. Okay, well, I'm not going, but I think that before we had that, so we're going to do this. This is why it's important to have comments. So we do that, and this not might be. Okay, it's not going to work. So we're going to keep that there. Not from key, because like 3 key is fixed length. I think. Yeah, I might be mistaken, but I think it is. What do you think is better for a beginner to write his own authentication authorization system or use a third party? Yeah, so depends of how beginner you are. Like for us, we always write our own. Yeah, it's a whole, so there's a trick here. One thing we don't want to be in the business of, I do not want to be in the business of because I don't have the brain for it, is to write the Blake 3 algorithm, the SHA stuff. I'm not a math guy. I don't know if you need to be a math guy to do this stuff, but that is not where my brain is at. Yeah, so I'm not trusting myself to write a Blake 3, SHA-12, Argon 2, and things. I don't have the expertise needed to write those guys and to see which one is stronger than the other one. I just don't. So I'm trying to make a judgment with what other people say, which is always very dangerous, and then that's it. Now, what we're doing here is not like security stuff, yeah? It's like the GWT people say, well, you should, it's a little bit silly, yeah? What we're doing is to say, hey, we have a hashing thing, yeah? Some very smart people give us Bcrypt or Argon 2. We know how to hash a password. And then we know how to hash a token. Yeah? It's basically take a string, whatever you want, and then you hash it. And then you make sure that if people, you validate that match the hash of that. And it's always the same thing. So for me, it's very important, I think, to understand what is a session or a token and everything, and write it yourself. Because when you try to rely on those kind of things, I mean, I'm migrating right now clients out of Supabase crazy stuff, because they become black box and they say, oh, we make it easy. For me, easy is evil. Simple is a goal, but simple is hard. Now, we don't want to give ourselves too much of a hard kind of things, yeah? So it's fine to use tools, but like for your own web server, create your own token scheme. I mean, I have the code here, and then you can see it. It's nothing. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So you create the things, you create your unit tests, you know how stuff, you put that in the cookie. And then one of the trick here is, for example, the cookie is HTTP only. So now it's not accessible in the document.cookies anymore. So that is an additional security kind of things because it's a black box. It's not the client business to know who the client is. It's kind of counterintuitive, but the client is said to the user, give the user and password, and then there's this kind of cookie. If we are doing with cookie, we could do it with header, but cookie works well. A header will be trickier because when they will close the browser, come back, there's no mechanism to get it back. So cookie give us that, but then it's a black box. It doesn't, the JavaScript doesn't have to care about this token and shouldn't see it and shouldn't access it. So my advice is, learn that, create your cookie, send it back. And then if in your enterprise and company you use Firebase and stuff, try to understand how they do it and stuff. But this is not, I don't think is a good delegation point. So now what we have is this, and then that's it. So I think we have done that. We are going to keep what does it do that? Oh, this stuff, I can get stuck for hours on this. I don't understand why. Okay, doesn't make any sense, but there's a bug somewhere here. I don't know why it has this overlay. So we're going to keep the SHA-2, I think. So what I do is I comment stuff out, press save, and actually it does complain because we're using it. Oh, yeah. We are using it in scheme 1. Let's see if I'm good. Yes. We're using it in scheme 1. Yes. So in the scheme 1, we use SHA-512, and then in scheme 2, we use Argon 2. Much better for password encryption. Not encryption, by the way, hashing. So there were a good comment somewhere where the difference, even if we could use encryption in both cases, but encryption implies that you can go back. Hashing is clear that you cannot go back. You go one way, and going back will be hacking, but the goal is to go only one way and make it super hard to go the other way. Yeah. So all of those techniques are hashing. The Argon 2, for my understanding, and again, I'm not an expert, but it's very proper for password because it's happened not often, and you want something that takes time, and you want the time on your side. On the token side, you just want, I think, things about collision or whatever to make something really cryptographically sound, or I don't know what the terminology is, but for what I've read, Blake 3 is as good, even if it's much faster than SHA-512, is as secure as 512. Yeah, so that is what I read, but if you have expert here, it's fine to have other perspective. So the SHA-2 here, we're using it on the scheme. We could have done, that could have been a good use case. We could have done here in our scheme, and that is the beauty of owning your own. Back to your question, should you own it and stuff? When you own it, you own it. And so if you, so for example, in some of our cases here, client cases, we have this case where we have long-lived token, meaning that an application or something will be on the server side somewhere, and a token will be given like an API key, and we want this API key or this token to have a length, an expiration, such as it can be checked offline. So without pinging back the server, we can check if stuff. So this scheme is very good. But now we can say, well, actually what I want is to make sure that I can improve the scheme and the algorithm of the hash. So here we could have the same thing here that we have for the password, where we will include into our little format of the token, something like that. And usually you will just, either way works, but And so the nice things about owning your token format is that now you can do these kind of things here when it's needed and stuff. And again, this token format that I put in the Rust web app can be used for URL signature as well. It's very similar to what AWS and everybody is using for URL signature. Yeah? So you have an identifier, which is the identifier of the video, of could be even the URL or whatever, an expiration date. Yeah, that can be checked on the server side and stuff, and then the signature. And then that can be Blake. And then when someone gets that, it's like, okay, I'm making sure that the expiration is okay and that you didn't cheat it by putting something else. Yeah. So that is something possible. So now that I have that, usually what I like to do is write my cargo examples. So somewhere. And again, feel free to ask questions. I think I'm getting better about not waiting for people to answer my question. So there's a delay. So I've learned that I cannot ask a question and wait for the answer, because otherwise it makes it not very productive for anybody. So anyway, so now we have that. We have the things. I'm going to do a search. Usually what I do is a search like that to make sure I don't have my thing. I will typically do a cargo test, but it's a long, I'm a little bit afraid. It's a long time I haven't done it in this stuff, so it should work. But we've seen that the token works, but I think I need to make sure that I have my Docker. So I'm going to start my Docker. No, Docker, I think it's down. Oh no, I had it and stuff. And then I go back to my README. And I'm going to, inside my README, I have stuff to explain. So we can run the Docker. So that will run the database. So I'm running it into a terminal on the side. Yeah, so that is the way I do it usually. This is a little tip and tricks here. If you wanted to do a pSQL stuff and things, it's pretty cool. You can create another Docker exec with to the same guy, to PG, with a pSQL, such as you can have pSQL if you want. And that is a trick here where once you are there, you can run that, and that you would get all of the logs of all your select statements. So don't do that in production, obviously, but in development, it could be cool because then you see that in your little terminal over there. Now, what we are going to do two things here, terminal one. So this is why I have these two guys here. We have the terminal one. So let's see if I can do that like this. So we have the terminal one, we're going to do that. So that will start the server. So that will create, that will watch only the server. So that is, again, this is just the way I've done it. Yeah, just watch the server only and the create libs as well, and the cargo because there's some environment variable there. And then I do a run web server, .p web server. So that is going to run the web server. Typically that should be pretty good. Okay. And so that's good. And then on the second one here, that I put there, I'm going to run this guy. So that does cargo watch, the same thing. Watch only the examples. You want to make sure, because otherwise they restart and it's getting very tricky. And then you just run the web server. So the examples here that I have, I just happen to put them in the web server. It would be an argument that they should be somewhere else, but they are example of web server, so it's fine. And then I put them. And usually I don't go too deep into it, but it should be log of true, so that's good. And then if I see data here and doesn't complain, it's fine. So that's mean if you look at the examples that we have, it's pretty cool, yeah, because. And again, this stuff, I don't have it here, but eventually, perhaps on the web server, I will have a test to be able to test the whole services. Yeah. So right now, it's no low man. I don't know. It's not low man. It's I've lost the American expression. it's a poor man's job, okay, of testing. Okay, this is a poor man's job of testing because obviously this is not testing, but it gives me a sense that that is kind of working. At some point, I'm going to have some testing, integration test, meaning that it's not going to be within my lib, it's going to be here, web server, and not within the source, but we'll have test and then stuff. And then we will probably assume that the server will be started before. There's many strategy about testing that will be a whole other videos. For me, I like to try to avoid the mock as much as possible and to test the real thing. In Axum, you can test the APIs without going through the whole thing, which is cool as well. And I haven't made a decision which one is better and stuff. So there might be some very good case of using some internal test over there, using the Axum way of not going through HTTP, but mocking the HTTP with the Axum. I think there's a way of doing that. And you can always call the function, yeah, but it's not the same way. And then this way here, I will also do a normal HTTP access. Sometimes there's some variance here, and it's nice to be able to do that. So here we see that we have the login. So the way that the example work here is a quick dev. So I have the new client, the HTTP test here. That is a little library that I did a while back. And then, yeah, I see your question here. Is Rocket Framework? I'm going to answer it. And please, anybody, I think we are close to 1 hour now. I don't know. We are close to quite a bit of time. So I think I'm going to archive this video for the live stream members, and I don't want to make it too long. So it's probably coming at the end here, but if you have any questions, please, ping them right now on the chat. And then I will answer them one by one. So it's a good time here to ask all the questions, even if it's not about Rod's web app. And I will come to your answer here. So now the point here is that we have the new HTTP. We create a new client. What this create is doing here is create a client with a cookie business. Yeah. So this way it keeps the cookie like a browser, yeah, kind of, but close enough. And then I do a post here, login with my username and password, demo1 welcome. And then I do the print. So that is another kind of convenient of the HTTP test. And then I do a things where I create an agent. And then, I check that there's an ID and everything. So I did this whole little flow here of things where I create objects and I come back. So the whole authentication works and the token works and everything, and we change it with Blake. So if I remove all the blabbing around, hey, Step, I don't know who is Step. Is it Stefan or whatever? But French people, always welcome. Anybody, welcome. So the thing I'm saying is, yeah, the whole little workflow kind of works and stuff. So if I remove my blabbing around, you see that doing the code for updating to Blake was kind of super fast. So what I will do, typically, go back to this guy. So I have this guy side by side. And then I do a git log to know where I am. So that is the things. I check that I change the right thing. Sometimes I do, I don't remember how to do the keyboard here to do the GitHub stuff, but I check the GitHub to make sure that I change the right thing. And then I will do a git C. I have aliases of everything, and I will say, oh, I put auth. I'm not, so I have these things, dot is minor, these things is upgrade, plus is a new things and everything. So update token to Blake 3. My goal of the commit is to do a commit per functionality, per upgrade, or per things. Not to be too dogmatic or being too stressed about putting the title, because otherwise you add friction for nothing. But I like to have something that, at least for me or for the team and everything, when we look at it, we can see, relatively what it's about. So I usually take the name of what it's about and then what we did. What it's about, what we did, okay? Try to put a dash sometimes I don't. It doesn't have to be too dogmatic, just have to be informative. Okay, now that we have done that, I'm going to push it. And you guessed it, I have a git push origin here, which is my alias. I have a always alias. And that is there. And if we go back into our Rust web app stuff, you have it there. That is pretty cool. And that is our first live stream commit, which is pretty cool. Okay, now questions. I'm going to try to go to my Zoom stuff. This is a good. So, what do you think about? No, sorry. Is Rocket a framework? I'm a big fan of Axum. I think they nail it down. I think the developer nailed it down. I've worked with a lot of frameworks in Java, in Node.js, in Rust. I did some video early on with Warp. I think the problem of the Rocket and stuff, I mean, I haven't played too much with Rockets and stuff, but usually frameworks that I don't like is frameworks that try to do too much. Yeah. So for example, I like framework like Axum where even the cookies is not even Axum doing it. Yeah. So they have the middle tier and they have these things, and then you have the cookie middle tier or whatever that you can. So Axum has these things which is extremely well done for a web server, which is the concept of middleware a la Rust. Yeah, so it's not new. Yeah, we had Java server servlets and filters, and then we have Node.js with Express, with middleware. So it's all of the same concept, but it's very well done with the concept of extractors, such as it looks like, it doesn't look like dependency injection, but it has the same feeling of the same characteristic of injection where, you know, you have a function, and as long as you have the extractors, you know, the data will be extracted and put back as an argument. So doing a endpoint, it's extremely convenient. And then they have also, so they have the middleware and the extractor model, and then even the extractor for the body. So I think they nail it down, and they have the the response wrapper and everything, and the error system. They have a pretty good design with what is possible with Rust to be able to kind of catch it at the end and so on. They have the request context where you can add things to the request object and to the request response. So there's a lot of very well-made stuff where we can build our own things and our own workflow, like this one, for example. Yeah. So that is extremely, and you're not dependent on how a framework wanted to interpret the way to do sessions or to do whatever. Yeah, it's up to us. And so with some good patterns, you do it. So that is what I like in frameworks. I use Diesel to implement my model, but having a hard time. Yeah. So user form, So I don't know what is the user request, user form, user response. This is not my stuff. I don't think it is. So I use Diesel to implement my module, but having hard time when I have to rewrite different versions like user requests, user forms, user response. Yeah, for me, I do not like ORMs. I think they are a little tricky to use because, and it's always the same thing. I had a video about this, about the complexities. What do we own and what we don't own? And the problem with ORM is we are delegating way too much to the framework. And it's not the fault of the framework. Yeah? People that are coding them are very passionate about them. They add a lot of functionalities and things. The problem is, even if we zoom out and we don't care about who does what, is the responsibility is almost put at the wrong place. And then you end up with many ORM systems being too hard-coded into your data model and what the representation in the table should be. And so while it's good, and I have so I'm using more SQL builders. Yeah, there's one that I'm using right now, which is C-Query, which is ironically the query builder that is used by CORM. So again, I'm not a fan of ORM. It doesn't fit my request flow, but I like SQL builder, and C-Query is pretty good. It's actually very impressive. It's cross drivers and everything. The problem of cQuery is that sometimes when you write complex query, it's become very hard to read compared to the equivalent in SQL. So then after the value to say, well, yeah, but it's typed. And then the other one is just string, and string is bad and type is good. Yes, but if your type is unreadable, it's starting to get a little bit, counterproductive. Yeah. So there's a balance. Right now, cQuery is pretty good. I'm using cQuery. I had some code that I need to put open source with SQLite and stuff, and sometimes I just want to SQL. But I wrap them under the model, the model layer. So it's always a model controller that give it. So from all of my application code, all of these decisions of ORM, SQL Builder, cQuery vs SQL, it's the concern of the model layer. Yeah? So this is what we have in our code here. If we go to the code here, which is our lib core, we have our model. And inside our model, we have this concept of model controllers and everything. So if we go there, we have the types. And then we have, so that is all the types, conv filter and stuff. And then we have the conv backend model controller. And then we have the macro to generate the CRUD, the basic CRUD. And then we have also custom function that we have. And that is what can be bound to RPC. Yeah, so that is the thing. And so these guys here, in a way, they are using, SQL. So if I go here, over there, I'm using some function. And this is basically, if I go this, oh, I don't have the, if I go this is cQuery. I don't have the mode over there, but this is cQuery, yeah. No, step, organize my Rust API into controllers, model, serializer, services, query, and views is a Rust way of doing it. So I wouldn't put views, I wouldn't put queries. The way that the Rust 10x web app architecture kind of work, is that let me see if I get it somewhere. Yeah, okay, this one. I don't know why I didn't have it. Yeah, okay, this one. I'm sorry, I'm making people seasick here, but the way that I have it is it's the model. Yeah, so I have the model here, and that is where we have the model type and the model controllers, and we have the context, which is what the web is creating, the CTX, and then the model is talking to the store. So nobody is talking to the store, just the model layer. And so in the model layer, you have two things, the model controllers. And when I say controllers, I don't know if it's the same controllers as iOS app or whatever. Yeah, when I say controllers is a guy which is in between your application code and your data, that knows how to get data in and how to get data out. So that is what controllers in the Java world will use to call that DAO in a way. But DAO doesn't make sense in the context of Rust because they don't need to be live object. So in my case, they are typed, but there are no instances. Yeah. So, but there's different way to skin the cat. Yeah. But they don't have to be object per se. So that's you have the controller, but I'm not sure you have the queries and stuff. The queries it's the business of the model controllers. Yeah. Yeah, so one thing is my organized Rust API to serializer services and stuff. Yes, the Ruby on Rails. And so that is a trick, We all come with our experience and stuff. Me, I came from Java and JavaScript and things. And always one thing I did every time I moved to another language, so did a lot of Java on the back end. And actually we did Node.js after Java, which is weird, but It's actually scaled pretty well. And anyway, there's a whole production coding reason for it, but with TypeScript and so on. And even if you could do JavaScript / TypeScript the Java way, with dependency injection and stuff, you don't. Yeah, so that is the trick, is you can, people does it, but it's a lost opportunity because you don't need it. It's not the same thing in Java, because JavaScript, I know that now it changes a little bit, but JavaScript is a single-threaded language. So by default, you don't have the problem that you have in other language of creating singleton and stuff. Yeah, so there's a lot of things here where, sure, you can code JavaScript the way you code Java, or you can code Rust the way you code Java, or vice versa, but it's a mismatch. It's a lost opportunity. Yeah? You are paying twice the taxes. Because one, you are paying the taxes that JavaScript is not a multi-threaded language, and moreover, you are not taking advantage that is a single-threaded environment. And it's single-threaded, again, it's concurrent, yeah? So the language, they have the event loop, and they have the whole async await, which is awesome, which is concurrent, which is why we're using it on the server. But still, except if you do workers and everything on corner cases, for your main code, even if it's concurrent, you can assume your JavaScript two-thread doesn't access the data. Yeah, so that is the thing. Did you ever create an app in which run well locally but doesn't? Yes, that often happens. So did you ever create an app which runs well locally but doesn't work on other machine? And if that happened, what is your advice? Well, it's tricky. Yeah, one of the apps that I've created is awesome app, and at the beginning it didn't work on Windows. And so on the desktop apps, Windows and stuff can get very tricky because, well, first, there's a whole PaaS business. Rust solve a little bit, but there's still things that need to be handled. And then even in my development, when I was doing the awesome app stuff, the way you kill processes and child processes on Windows is completely different than the way you kill them on a Unix system, Unix C system or whatever. And so on Windows, you have to have this loop and stuff. So I had to spend quite a bit of time in one of my lib to do crazy work to make sure that I was killing the stuff below. Right now, I'm working a lot. There's a cool project I'm working on, and which is open source. You can use this. It's Dev AI. I use it daily, all the time, for everything I do. But I'm sure it doesn't really work very well on Windows. Okay, so that is a Windows Unix kind of things. And probably the Unix Windows stuff. Otherwise, in production, what I'm trying to do is we have what I will call a Kubernetes. I'm sorry. People see sick. I need to stop this. But we have a Kubernetes-driven kind of development. And so the goal is when you do cloud application, you want to reduce or maximize or reduce the proximity between your production and your development environment. And Kubernetes is heaven for that. So you use Kubernetes with Docker for Mac or Podman or whatever. Yeah, you can run Kubernetes locally. Usually when you have a machine, it's actually quite an expensive cloud setup, yeah, your local machine. So you can run a lot in your local machine. And so usually we try to minimize the difference between the cloud and the local and have everything look alike, and then we deploy it. So in our production development environment, I spend a lot of time on that topic to make these two very close. And typically we didn't have this issue. Yeah, but it can always happen. Use your machine to host the app at the colo. I don't know what that means, I'm sorry. Is it Axum? I'm not sure. Race controller, so I think that is another discussion. Ben Wells, happy to catch a stream. I stepped away from this project a few months, but I was always curious. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, no problem. I really love to answer questions, and usually it's also helped me either make the new videos, and often there's also stuff that I need to make sure that I answer. Okay, so I think am I still streaming or not? Yeah, I think I'm still. So I think we're going to do the stuff. I don't even know, how do I know how long it was? I'm still learning this whole thing. So I'm like this newbie here where I'm like always confused. Okay, I have it. I started at 3 or whatever, and it's 4:20, so 1:20. Okay, 80 minutes. Okay, yeah, you know. So this is why I did this live, is because I need to learn more. And so one thing I want to do is put this live in the archive for the live stream members. And my current plan, and this can change over the time, yeah, but I will do schedule live stream members live with polling for the live stream members on what they want to hear. Yeah, so like this, the stuff. But I will also do ad-hoc, yeah, live stream like that for everybody. And then just to, you know, make sure that the live stream members, they're awesome. So we want to make sure that they're happy. I will put the archive of this video for the live stream members. Yeah, so like this, everybody finds their duck. But this way it allows me to practice more, to share more, and it's actually a nice thing for, I think, for both, for everybody, and as well as for the live stream members. So like this, everybody find their stuff. Okay, so I think that will end the stream. I really enjoy it. Thank you a lot. We were about like 20, I see we were about 20 to 25 and stuff, so that's pretty cool. And I'm just starting this kind of live streaming. I started Twitch. I mean, I tested Twitch just earlier, but I have nobody there, and so I'm not sure I would go there, so I prefer to work on the YouTube things. Okay, until next one, happy coding.